Welcome to Alpha Wolf Capital. I'm Tim, and I want to personally thank you for stopping by. This channel is designed to help small companies, both public and private, gain exposure with potential consumers, investors, even partners. Take, for example, today's guest, CEO Josh Resnik from FiscalNote, ticker symbol NOTE. FiscalNote delivers subscription-based access to essential and proprietary policy data, insights, and workflow tools via artificial intelligence-driven software as a service platform. This is one of the first artificial intelligence plays. They've been at this for over 10 years. They do business in 80 countries and have over 4,000 customers. In chaotic times like these, where policy seems to be changing daily, this is a tool that helps you navigate through that chaos. A good example of that is that they were able to commercialize and develop a tariff tracker. This is an impact company. I'm going to let Josh tell you more about that in just a minute. This is not to be taken as investment advice. I am not a certified financial planner. This is for education and entertainment purposes only. I encourage everyone to do their own due diligence. Hey everybody, Tim from Alpha Wolf Capital coming at you with a brand new company, but not brand new to me because I've been actually following them for a while. Fascinating company. Josh Resnik, CEO of FiscalNote, ticker symbol NOTE. And I'm gonna first, Josh, before we go into what Fiscal does, why don't you give us a little background on you? How did you get here?
Sure. And Tim, thanks for having me. It's really good to be here and having talk about what we're doing. So for me, I have a varied background. So I'm actually a lawyer by training. And in the first few years of my career, I did regulatory law. So at the time, it was a lot of FCC work, dealing with a lot of transactions and regulatory compliance before the FCC. And I left that the law firm life and regulatory side to go in-house at AOL in the late 90s when the internet was just really starting to take root, really taking off and growing. A really exciting time to be there. And I want to get closer to the business side of things and get into new media and technology. And so had an exciting time there at AOL. Didn't think I'd ever go back to the regulatory side. Had an exciting time at AOL and ended up taking on a hybrid business and legal role where I had a legal team and business development team. We did all the transactions for a group called AOL Media Networks, which at the time was about $1.5 billion in annual revenue and was focused on basically all of the revenue being generated outside of AOL's subscribers. So there was the subscription business, which at its height was like 30 million subscribers every month. But then there was AOL's revenue that it generated through search, advertising, e-commerce, any way there was to make a buck online. AOL was involved, and my team was doing the deals related to it, including we did a really exciting transaction with Google in 2002 when Google was still relatively early, and it was the early days of paid advertising and search. So really got to see the internet take off and form in that time. I left AOL to go to a pure business role. I was one of the founding executives at the digital division of Gannett. So Gannett at the time was one of the largest media companies in the world, publisher of USA Today, 90 newspapers, 20 some TV stations, niche media properties, and was launching a digital division to help transform the company from traditional to digital. And I went to run business development and corporate development there and did a variety of work launching new businesses, partnerships, products, acquisitions, and investments. So I served on the boards of 5 different portfolio companies there and helped to accelerate the digital revenue growth. We grew it at 35+% annual CAGRs, and great experience there. And from there, I went to startup world. So I was recruited to join an early stage startup. I was the first non-engineer hired into an e-commerce startup. And that was really exciting to be in on the ground floor. And there's nothing quite like the closeness and camaraderie that you get in doing that, and the kind of the creativity and freedom in exploring totally new territory. And it started as free open source software and built a very strong engagement with users around the world. And we then built a paid SaaS solution on top of it, which at the time was really interesting and revolutionary and really a great product. We sold to First Data in 2015, which First Data is now Fiserv, the large payment processor. And then I spent a few years there building out products for First Data. And that's when it was towards the end of my time at First Data in 2018 when I got connected to FiscalNote. And FiscalNote was really interesting in a couple of respects. So one is my first two conversations were with two of the co-founders. So the company was started in 2013 by a group of three friends from high school who were actually not that far out of high school when they started it. And I met them, Tim Huang and Gerald Yao, in early 2018, and was immediately struck by a couple of things. So one was, Tim is a founder, and I've dealt with so many founders in my time, both through my own investing, advising. I've advised a VC firm, so I've seen a lot of founders. And Tim's very special as a founder. Had a great vision, not just for FiscalNote, but for FiscalNote's place in the world. So that really struck me. And Gerald we had a great conversation about values and kind of an ethos behind a company, ethos behind working together and and like I said, coming from a startup, that really meant a lot to me because that means a lot. And it's one thing to do in a startup, it's hard as a company gets bigger. And we've done that, I think, very well as the company has gotten bigger, sometimes better, sometimes worse, but overall better. And that's kind of a testament. Those things are testaments to the founders. So I was really struck by that. But then FiscalNote, when you think about it, is really good intersection from my experience. So I mentioned I had been a regulatory lawyer, left it, didn't think I'd go back, and here I am dealing with this world of policy and regulation. And a lot of our customers are general counsels, in the compliance side, government affairs. So I kind of understand that pain they go through with trying to navigate this world of regulation, and then combination with the SaaS work that I did at my startup and with I come from a world of media and journalism. And so we've got, in addition to all the data that we provide through our platform, we also provide information and insights that, including from a newsroom here on Capitol Hill that provides like unparalleled access to what is happening in federal government. And so that connection back to the journalism and media side and content to what I've done, it was just a really interesting and unique connection of all these things. And then lastly, I'll just say the purpose behind it. So the founders started this because they felt that there wasn't enough transparency into what was happening in government. It was, really important work, but it was too hard to get insights into what really was happening. And even people within government had a hard time seeing what was happening. So they wanted to bring more transparency to it and connect people to their governments. And that in itself is interesting, but it's kind of expanded since there, which is when you look at what's happening in the world today, so what we do is we help our users navigate the chaos and change that comes with policy and regulatory change. And if I talked to you about this in 2018 when I first joined the company, you maybe would have gotten it in concept, but it would have been hard for you to appreciate the value behind it. These days, it's not too hard for people to appreciate the value behind it, right? So you see every day how impactful policy and regulatory changes are on organizations and people globally. You see how hard it is, even for the world's leading experts to keep up with it. You see how hard it is for the policymakers to even understand sometimes what it is that they're regulating and the implications. When they're getting into issues like crypto, AI, and the like that's hard for people to understand. And if your job is government, you didn't get into government because you're an expert in AI, but now all of a sudden you have to figure out, how do I regulate AI? So our view is we're objective, nonpartisan. We don't focus on what should happen from the perspective, are you right or are you left? We focus on the fact that we want all these people to be better informed. And by being better informed, by understanding the issues, by understanding where policy stands, by understanding the implications, better decisions will get made, or I should say, better is probably not the word because that's subjective. but more informed decisions get made. And whichever side of the political fence you're on, I think you want your elected officials, your regulators making informed decisions at the very least. So the purpose behind what we do matters to me too.
Right. More informed, I think, is always a good thing, right?
Yeah.
So let everybody know that there's an AI component here. I mean, they were involved in AI like from the beginning of this thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. The company was really founded with a great strength in AI from the start. With the idea that, again, it was with the idea of bringing technology into the space. So it wasn't meant to be a platform where they would just, upload PDF documents and have that be that. It went much further beyond it. And, at the time when it first started, it was, the AI capabilities weren't anything like what we have today when you think about the user experience behind it. But a lot was, back end when you think about how, all this information is really hard to get to and really hard to make use of. So a lot in terms of um, how the information went from collection to becoming useful and was processed and the like, where that was very useful, which is a really hard problem to solve. But then also it did, as much as possible, work its way into the user experience in terms of looking at things like likelihood of a bill to pass, where they applied AI to that as well. And when you think about that, sounds like a small feature, but can be very important because many people don't realize how much legislation there is out there on any given topic at any given time. When you look across even just US federal and states, I mean, and pick a topic, there's probably hundreds of bills pending out there right now. But you can't, as a policy maker, as a policy influencer, you can't possibly manage to all those. You want to manage the ones that matter. And so the AI was very useful in that regard too. So the company's been applying AI since the start. We've reinvested in it now with the launch of our new platform, PolicyNote, which is very AI centric. And so the new AI capabilities with generative AI, and then, as things progress with agentic AI, will enable us to create just better and better solutions for our end users. And so now our newest platform, the user experience, is much more AI focused in terms of the use of generative AI, in the terms of the use of AI behind the scenes to make our learning better, all these things. So it's part of our DNA from the start. But we continue to invest in it with our new platform and new hires. So we brought in a new chief product officer in September who came from Case Text, which was a great success story in legal AI. So they did, consider it case law search for lawyers with an AI focus. And they built that, grew that very aggressively and quickly through product-led growth, and had a very successful $650 million all cash sale to Thomson Reuters. And the type of experience that we want to build, the type of user we have is very similar. So our clients are in government affairs, legal, et cetera. We're providing, it's not case law search, it's policy information, but very similar type of problem to solve, very similar buyers. And we want to do that same type of product-led AI-led product-led growth. And so bringing the talent to do it, we just brought in new engineering leadership as well. So we're really excited to take what the company's been doing for a long time, and do so much more now for the future with PolicyNote and with the talent that we have in the organization.
Okay. Yeah, before we hopped on, you and I were talking about I asked you about AI and all these capabilities and how they're AI agents, and now these AI agents are working together to, you know, make streamlined processes and all this stuff. I mean, at the pace at which this stuff is happening, it's just fascinating to me. And I asked you if that was going to be a good thing or a bad thing for you, and you came back without any hesitation and says you're definitely going to be a good thing, right?
Yeah, it definitely is a good thing for us because again, so with our AI focus, we view AI as a strength for us right now. And for us, there's two really important things for you to think about in that regard. So one is think of us as purpose-built AI. So we're focused on policy and regulation and applying AI to solve problems for our clients who need help in that area. And that could be discovering new information, it could be tracking the information, it could be understanding the implications, generating insights, and the like. We excel at that, both in terms of when you think about there's publicly available data that we have, which is really hard to find, really hard to get, and there's a lot of it. And so we collect from literally tens of thousands of sources globally. We go broader locally than anyone. We go deeper locally than anyone. It's multimodal, right? So it comes structured, unstructured. it's hard to find these sources. It's hard to get the data from these sources. You have to clean the data. You have to normalize it. There's a lot that gets done to make it useful. We also have our own proprietary insights and analysis that we generate literally every day. So we have people in DC who are focused on US policy analysis and developments. We have people literally in the halls of Capitol Hill who will be there when draft legislation is getting marked up by a subcommittee. We have, the depth of what we have and the uniqueness of what we have, the analysis we provide on top of it, no one else has. We do similar type of thing in Brussels with EU policy analysis. And so the scope of data we have is really unparalleled. But what's also really important is when we are running our AI, it's on top of those data sets and just those data sets. So you know that what we're doing is clean. So when you think about our clients and who they are, we have 4,000 organizations that are some of the largest organizations in the world, private sector and public sector. And they depend on this information being right. If you think about it, forget the organization, think down to the individual user who's really the one who's at stake here. You're head of global government affairs for a large multinational. You have to report to your CEO. You have to report to your board on what are the opportunities and risks coming from all this policy change. You can't do that with a chat GPT search, right? Like you're just not going to rely on it. You need to know the answer you get back to be accurate. And part of the challenge with chat GPT, which is a great engine, which we OpenAI, right? We actually, we use OpenAI on the back end. But the uniqueness, the difference is when we're running against just those data sets and when we're running against our prompt engineering and all the things we're very good about and purpose built around policy, you can trust the answer you get back. And we know that that trust is so important. We can't afford giving our clients the wrong answer. And so we make sure we don't. Trying to get it out of, Chat GPT is an example where they're collecting, even if you assume they have all the information that we have, which they don't by definition, but even if you assume that they did, they also have so much else. And so there's a lot of misinformation that creeps into those answers and can creep into those answers. And so if you're a casual user, just kind of curious about a topic, that might be a good solution for you. But if your career depends on it, if your organization is depending on it, then you need us. So that's our strength in AI today. But when you talk about where is AI going and why am I so confident this is all really good for us, is it means that because of our strength, because we're so good at this, the more powerful AI tools become, that means the better we can become at solving more and more interesting problems for our customers. And so to give you an example of that, beyond information discovery, what we do today includes things like workflow, reporting, stakeholder management, and the like. So we go beyond information today, which is also something you can't do through just a LLM. But going forward, that starts to get more and more interesting. And an example is, and so let me actually put it to you from a customer perspective. If you're one of our customers today, let's say you're spending $30,000 with us for like a mid-market contract to get information and insights on policy, regulation, et cetera. You then, once you have those insights and the information, a lot of what you then go do is manual workflow with other organizations. So law firms, lobbying firms, public affairs firms and the like, and you might spend $3 million with those, right? We feel we can automate a lot of that workflow that's ancillary to the information insights that we provide. And as AI gets more and more powerful and you get into reliable agentic AI, we'll be that much better at doing it. That opens up a huge share of wallet for us and is much more efficient for the customer. And so it becomes a really interesting place. When you think about our long-term potential, our long-term market, our long-term growth, we haven't even begun to scratch the surface. And it's because the technology hasn't been there to automate that workflow, but now the technology is getting there. And so now the ability to do that, that next field of automated workflow gets really interesting for us. And right? It's moving so quickly, it's not that far away. And we're doing little elements of this today already in PolicyNote. So as an example, if you're tracking a piece of legislation in PolicyNote, beyond getting AI summaries and AI alerts and so on and the like, one thing you might need to do from a workflow perspective is for your organization, you might need to draft a position statement related to that piece of legislation, which now takes days. Now with PolicyNote, click of a button, you can do that in our platform and have it right away. Now that's actually a very simple use case that's honestly not that hard to do. It's just an example of how we can continue to expand into automating this workflow, become a more powerful solution for our customers, And as the technology gets more powerful, we get better at solving more sophisticated problems. And as we do that, share of wallet grows, ACVs grow, and our revenue grows significantly. So we haven't yet even begun to scratch the surface, but I'm excited at the potential as the technology improves.
This is like such a huge, it's like almost too much to comprehend, right? But I mean, this is a perfect example. This time right now is a perfect example of how important what you're doing. I mean, first of all, like you said, you've got a 9 to 10 years head start on everybody, right?
Yeah.
So that in itself creates I think, a pretty good moat, right?
Yeah.
But your ability to adapt quickly to the changing environment, like tariffs,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's an area I think we've really improved on. I think for any business to truly succeed and have outsized growth, one of the keys to it is you have to be prepared to take advantage of opportunities when they come your way. And in the case of tariffs, from our perspective, right, that was an externality, right? Liberation Day, which I think was April 2nd, um, and again, separating your politics from it, was it good? Was it bad? Was it the right thing? Was it the wrong thing?
Doesn't matter.
For us, because it happened. So it is. And so from our perspective as a company, that's one of those externalities that happened that for us is a business opportunity because it created a new demand among our clients. Say, we need help, right? We don't know this is just, it's a lot of information, it's a lot of change, and that means they need help being guided through that change and understanding it. And in the space of literally 2 weeks, we went from the externality occurring to launching our new tariff tracker inside PolicyNote and having our sales teams on the phone talking to people about it uh, uh, on the day of launch. And that turned into real pipeline for us on that day.
You're taking
So,
total chaos,
yeah,
right? Because I hear that word a lot,
yeah,
chaos,
yeah.
and you're making it not so chaotic.
Well, that's the value that we provide to our customers because that's what they need, right? They need help navigating. They need help navigating. It's really it's a again, it's not right, it's wrong. It's just it is what it is. It's a chaotic environment. There's a lot of change. It's increasingly complex because everything now is global. Tariffs is a great example of it, but tariffs gets the headlines, but there's that what is happening with tariffs happens on a small scale with regulation all the time of like, you need to comply with this regulation here in this region, but it's contrary to that regulation there in that region. You're operating in both regions, or you may be an agriculture company that produces in 10 countries and ships to 100. And like, that's really hard. But also, you may be a mid-market, you may be a small business, you may be a technology company that, 20 years ago, you wouldn't have been considered regulated. Well, data protection, user privacy, all these things now impact you and they're really hard to manage. So all these entities have a really hard time managing to it, and they can't run their businesses effectively. This kind of complexity can really hurt a business because the worst thing for a business is not even do they like this regulation or not. It's do they understand it and understand the implications. If they understand the implications, they can deal with it. Right now, with the pace of change, and I don't just mean tariffs last 2 weeks, just generally where the world has been going, pace of change increases, complexity increases. And so they need help understanding that, anticipating what's next, all these things. And so by solving that problem for them, it's a very high value problem. And that's where they need us. And so for us, with something like tariffs, when that then becomes this kind of outsized one, right? That's this externality that hits. And so one encouraging thing for us as a business is when I see us with that ability from a product perspective and a go-to-market perspective to be able to take that externality and turn it into a tangible business benefit for us within 2 weeks, that's pretty exciting because that tells me, what we're going to be able to do going forward.
That's incredibly exciting, and I
Yeah.
don't think that I don't think it's going to get less complex. I think things are going to get more complex, right? I mean, I just look at where technology in general is going, and we talked about this too. We talked about the fact that there's going to be a lot of automation, there's going to be a lot of autonomy, there's going to be a lot of things, drones. I mean, all of the regulations that are coming down the pike, there's going to be a lot of them. I mean, a
Yeah.
lot of them. And it's going
Yeah.
to impact so many industries,
Sure. Yeah.
right?
Well, and it's also keep in mind the change is what drives the need. So whether it's more regulation or less regulation, right? So the US administration, has talked about less regulation. Certainly they seem to be taking steps for less enforcement and other things. But again, it's what drives the need for the guidance is change, whichever direction that change might be in. And so I think one certainty is it's not going to calm down anytime soon. So, right, if you look at kind of really, really high level, do you expect the pace of change in this world from a political standpoint to slow down or increase? I think you'd have to say, or at least stay. I don't know if you can get beyond this, but the point being, it's not slowing down anytime soon. Policies, do you expect the rate of change to slow down anytime soon? I would say absolutely not, right? And again, whether it's increased regulation, deregulation, keep in mind also whether it's coming from federal, right? So right now you see a lot in federal, US federal, because of the way this administration came in ready,
Yep,
right? And is making a lot of change. But even if you assume, okay, that they can't keep that up, some of the things they'll be able to keep doing, some of the things they won't. Right now they control the executive branch and the both houses of Congress. So, and so let's just say, who knows? Let's say your assumption is that'll change in a couple of years, right?
yep.
Even when the federal government slows down, guess what happens? States speed up and they pick up the vacuum. And so, like, no matter what, this pace of change is not going to alter anytime
And
soon.
you're global, by the way. You're in how many countries?
So we collect data from more than 80 countries around the world. We collect from more than anyone else, and that's the demand for global data. I'm glad you brought that. Like the demand for global data is huge. Um, More and more companies, because again, more and more companies operate internationally. And again, like even just setting tariffs aside, there's so much else that goes on. If you're in agriculture, you're farming, cocoa beans from South America. You probably have various farming regulations down there that you need to comply with. You have your own, labor employment, there's so much that you need to comply with. Then you're going to ship those somewhere to be processed, and that's a whole new round of regulations you need to deal with. Then those, becomes ingredients in consumables. That's a whole new, and so you hit country by country, you hit federal levels in places, you hit member state in the EU, you hit states in the US, even down to locals. Like if you're talking about, I don't know, sugar in drinks, so you have to think about that side of things too. So I have to say, like, I have a lot of empathy for our customers who have to deal with this all the time. And, and I know, again, having been there, right, you live in this fear of not only managing to what you're aware of, but really worried about, are you missing something that matters? And that's a really hard thing too. And so that's why it's just so hard for them to do this manually. It's so hard to turn a blind eye to it. It's so hard. That's why having a comprehensive solution, and again, back to the question you asked on AI, this is why AI is so important too, because, and why to us, it is such a tailwind because it helps us solve these problems in a better way. So in our older products where an alert might be keyword based. So if you're interested in ethanol, you want to track anything that has keyword ethanol. But what about pieces of legislation that don't talk about ethanol, but might impact ethanol producers, corn, whatever? That didn't work in a keyword search. With our AI, we pick that up and we're able to tell our users, hey, you may want to follow this thing. It doesn't comply with one of your keywords, but based on what else your other activity, we think you might be interested. So that kind of thing becomes really important because you've got, again, when you're thinking about it in the private sector, you've got tremendous amounts of pressure just to try to track to all this. You probably have a large team at a large company, a large team you're trying to manage. At a small company, it might be just you and the pressure's all on you. It's impossible to really make sure that you're finding everything unless you're spending tons and tons of money on outside counsel, on outside lobbyists, on people in-house, all these things. And so our solutions bring this ROI from using them because you can be more efficient, but it's more, I think, the security of knowing that you're going to find what you need to find. You won't get surprised by something that you didn't know about. You'll be able to track your workflow, your stakeholder interactions in one place. Like it just takes what is a really, really, really difficult thing to manage and makes it so much better. Think of it almost like if you're a chief revenue officer, um, trying to manage a large sales team without using a platform like Salesforce. How would you possibly even think to understand who is your team talking to? How are they doing? What does your pipeline really look like? Like you can do it, but you're just not going to do it well. And so a platform like ours helps our clients do it well. And technologies like AI, as they get better, help us do it even better.
All right, so this is what I want to do because we could go on. It's not a real simple business. I mean, it is simple, but it's a little complex. But because I'm going to have you back, there's no doubt about that. I think this is a great story. I think the stock has had a challenge. The company had a bit of a challenge, right?
Yeah.
But I do believe that you're on the right track. You have it, and I don't want to harp on the past because I'm not one of those guys. I want to know where we're going, not where we've been, right?
Yeah.
So the beautiful thing I think about mistakes or is that you learn from them
Yeah.
and you move on, right?
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it. So I want to look at where we're going, and you know, I asked you about cash. You're good on cash, so
Yep.
that's always a big concern of shareholders, right? Are they going to dilute the heck out of us? Okay, you're good on cash. You're moving towards profitability, cash flow
Yep.
break even profitability, right?
We're profitable on an adjusted EBITDA basis, and we've made a huge shift there in the way that we operate. So we went from a $24.5 million adjusted EBITDA loss in 2022 to 9.8 positive last year. So a huge shift in how we operate, and we're not yet free cash flow positive, but that's a huge focus for us. And you can see how we're getting much closer, and you can see we're accelerating that path.
Right. You had 30, what was it? You had a
I
30
mean,
million change in operating cash flow.
yeah, we improved by 30 million last year. We've been paying down our senior term loan. So if you look outside of operations, our largest, the cash expenditures not accounted for there are cash interest and CapEx. We're, disciplined on CapEx in terms of how, just again, tying back to how we operate. And our cash interest, we've continued to pay down. So our senior term loan, we paid down by more than 60% in about the past year. And so our cash interest is now down to about 2 million per quarter. And so we're accelerating that path to free cash flow. And I think that so people can see that we know how to operate, right? And that we're very focused on disciplined operations and getting there to the free cash flow positive. So and we're showing we're getting there more quickly.
Okay. So one of the other issues that you fell below the dollar
Yeah.
recently, right? And then you got the notification for potential delisting, but you've got a 6 month window, which is
Yeah.
a big window to try and get the share price. The only thing you're deficient in is the share price itself, right?
Yeah, I mean, from a share price perspective, yeah, we dropped below the dollar. I think, you can speculate as to what goes into trading any given day. Some of it is undoubtedly the market chaos. I mean, we were at $2 a couple months ago. So, we're smaller. We tend to be more volatile. And you're operating in a volatile environment. We have 6 months to cure. The plan is to do it organically. We're continuing to execute against our plan. And frankly, like when you think about it, the way I think of it is this, like if I were in the shoes of an investor, the first thing I'd be asking is, do these guys know how to run a company? And that goes to the profitability and free cash flow. Like, I think they know how to run it, and are they going to be able to manage to the debt load that they have and just keep going as a sustainable entity, right? So that was kind of the first thing that people just need, that kind of oxygen in the room to be able to breathe and understand. And I think people are there. I think from an operating perspective, the piece that people are asking about rightly, because this is the next question I would ask, is okay, I hear you that there's tremendous demand and need for your type of services. I hear you that you have more data, better data than anyone else. You have proprietary information. You've been doing it longer. So where's the growth, right? And so that's the logical question that I would be asking if I were in the shoes of an investor. And so The more that we're proving out that we're on that path to growth, that's how I think we'll start to see more of that confidence in there and start to see that sentiment grow. I think that's the piece that people are waiting on. And that's what we're doing with our strategic plan. So the reason why we've been challenged from a growth perspective has largely been product. There's been some execution, but we're, like I said, we're pretty disciplined and we made management changes where we feel we need to make management changes. And I think we're operating really well right now, as evidenced in part by what we talked about with tariffs, right? That we were able to not just launch a new product that quickly, but commercialize it that quickly as well. So I think the operations is there. I think that the product issue, we're doing the right thing to fix it. It takes longer for it to take root. So the challenge we've had from a product perspective has been that these great data sets that we have been spread across siloed products. So federal in one place, state in another, local in another, et cetera. That creates a difficult user experience. That creates challenges up front when you're selling. It creates challenges for bundles. You know, it's one thing when someone's interested in federal, state, and local, but then when you tell them it's 3 different platforms, it's a disincentive for them to get all of them, right? Then when they get in, it creates engagement issues because it's hard to invest in creating the right experience for a user when it's on multiple different platforms. It's inefficient, it's hard. So not the right experience. And then it's hard to drive that cross-sell and upsell. So because again, it's cross-sell and upsell, you know, if you're federal and state and we want you to add local, that's a call from your account manager to say, hey, would you like to look at this other local product that we have? So it's harder. So point is there's friction in the user experience. There's friction in the buying process and upsell process. So what we've been able to do has been despite those product challenges, but what we've done has been invest in product to address that problem. And so we, over the past year plus at this point, invested in PolicyNote, and building out PolicyNote will be our centralized platform to house all of that policy information and data. We hired a new chief product officer in September of last year, coming from a company, Casetext, that had solved this problem around legal AI and done it with great product-led growth. So very similar type of problem to solve. And we've really accelerated since he joined. We've hired new engineering leadership that's strong in AI. So we're doing the right things. And we started making PolicyNote available to customers on a select basis in late Q4 last year. And we've been beta testing it with customers for a long time. So we've gotten really good feedback along the way. But it's been resounding in terms of the feedback that we're getting now as customers are really migrating onto it and starting to use it. So the things we're hearing is it's so much easier for them to find the information that they need. The AI, it's an AI forward experience. And so again, leveraging the strength that we have in AI along with the capabilities out of new technology, they're finding their information quicker. They're more engaged. We're looking at both the metrics and the qualitative feedback. It's all positive in terms of engagement levels and in terms of what they're doing. They're doing the high value activities that we want to see them doing. And then we're seeing votes of confidence with their wallets, which really at the end of the day, because what we saw in Q1 was for new logo on the corporate side, corporates committing to multi-year commitments to us at double the rate they were a year before. And so what does that tell you? That tells you when they
They're
see
having a better experience.
they know they're going to need the information, right? It's not flash in the pan because of tariffs. It's they know they need this. They have confidence in our ability to deliver against it. And they have confidence in the product roadmap that we'll be able to deliver against it for the long run. And to do it in this volatile environment, by the way, to commit to multi-years, that's a pretty good thing. And so we're seeing all those signs. And so what we're really, and what we did actually at our earnings last month, which is different than anything we've done before, is we started to expose people to the types of metrics I just went through because I see this every day and I see the promise. I see what we're able to do. I see how customers are engaging. I see the confidence that the teams have. And I want to, as much as possible, be conveying this to others as well, because like I said, this last remaining piece that people are waiting to see from us is, okay, when are you going to grow? And I see it. And now growth from product change is not overnight. So the other thing is I want to be realistic in the expectations we set for the market too. Like that's what we're trying to do with the guidance we give and the information we provide is explain Here's the problem that we see. Here's the solution. Here's how we know the solution is working. But it takes time for new product to really have the impact. You have to work your way through renewal cycles. It takes time to migrate thousands of customers on, all these things. But we'll start to see ARR accelerate in the second half of this year. That'll translate into GAAP revenue growth in next year. And interesting thing about the multi-years, by the way, is by definition, that improves gross retention next year as well. So you know that people are going to be staying with us. So I think we're doing a lot of exciting things. I think from an investor perspective, you probably have people in a couple different camps. Some people who would want to get in now, right? And on the confidence that it'll happen. Some who want to see it prove out. Everyone is different, but that's what we're really focused on. So when you talk about the stock price and where it's going, my view is we're mostly focused just executing against the plan because we're very confident where we're going. And then, for myself and our IR team and so on, it's obviously doing things we need to do to communicate to the investment community and make sure people understand why we're so confident as well.
All right. So look, let's give everybody a little quick snapshot of the balance sheet. So you've got 150 million shares outstanding. You've got some out of the money warrants and like way out of the money warrants, right? Then you've
Yeah.
got some convertibles. All in. We don't have the CFO here right now, but all in, it's probably where do you think the total fully diluted share count would be?
Yeah. So, I mean, we'll see because we'll see over time because we have a lot that's in flux right now in terms of what we're working on in regards to debt. So let me walk you through that. So like I said, we've paid down our senior term loan significantly with the goal of getting to free cash flow as
Okay.
quickly as possible, and we've accelerated the path there. We also have a handful of legacy convertible notes that were issued several years before we went public and continue to remain outstanding post-listing. Those were set to mature this year, and we've deferred the maturity on those. And so we've negotiated kind of solutions to how to manage those, which we disclosed recently in an 8K. And we are focused on, with that added time, finding additional solutions to address that portion of the debt as well without incurring significant dilution. So that's the sort of thing that we have in progress right now
Okay.
from a project standpoint. So look, we're very conscious of a number of things from a balance sheet standpoint and a capital structure standpoint. We've wanted to make sure we get the debt under control from a cash standpoint, get to free cash flow positive. We're conscious of the full debt stack and managing to that in a way that continues to create value for shareholders rather than dilute.
Okay. Next question I'm going to ask you, and I didn't ask you this pre-market, but or pre-jumping on, but insider participation. Has there been any insider transactions in the open market buying?
Buying, did you say?
Yeah.
No. So because I just want to be careful how I say this, make sure I don't cross any lines. So as we've said publicly, management believes that the shares are undervalued.
Okay.
As a public company, we have an insider trading policy which limits our ability to trade. We have limited windows in which we are allowed to trade.
Right.
And we can't trade when we're sitting on MNPI, right? That hasn't been disclosed. And if
Right.
you look at what we've been doing, we've had a number of material transactions over the past months that, that limit the availability of those windows.
You have a lot of blackout periods,
We do.
right?
That are outside the norm because of all the activity we've had from an MNPI standpoint.
Right. And I point that out for a reason, right? Because a lot of people are unaware of the fact because they think, well, if the CEO or the CFO thinks it's such a good deal, how come they're not buying? Well, because they can't.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what comes down to, right?
Yeah.
When that window opens, and that'll be up to legal when they tell you that window opens, then maybe you can take some action. But I
Yeah.
just wanted to bring it up so that people understand. Look, if you could, you probably would. You can't. So
I
that's
appreciate it. Yeah. And yep, I stick very close to legal on this. So I'm always very careful at what I say. I don't want to, yeah. But yeah, but that's what's going on.
okay. Your court. I'm just gonna. I want to blast through a couple of things real quick, and then we'll wrap this up, and I will have you back. But your customer. Your ideal customer is somebody that is in government affairs, general counsel, public affairs, right? Of large corporations. One of the things that was concerning to me when I first met this company, yes, I see the need. My concern was how big's the TAM, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how many customers? I mean, yeah, 4,000 customers sounds like a lot, but where does it max out? What is the TAM on this thing?
Yeah.
That's where I was struggling. It's like you're dealing with the big boys. Not everybody can afford to be get access to your data. They just can't
Yeah.
afford it, right? Because they don't have a government affairs guy or
Sure.
gal, right? So
It's a great question, Tim. And I'll tell you, it's something we think about a lot. And this is again where I think the opportunity is only expanding for us and is being driven by what we're doing in product. So there's a couple different ways to think about it. So start with your example around SMBs and smaller use cases, because that's an important one. And we haven't even, I think, scratched the surface in terms of who we're going to be able to reach there. And more of them are getting sucked into this vortex of policy and regulation. So the need will be there. The question is, how do you serve it? There's a couple important things from product perspective that will enable us to serve it in much broader ways than we have in the past. One is the better product experience and a single platform. So that's really what product-led growth is about, is having the right product out there that provides an innately easy user experience for someone to be able to go in and just get value out of it. And so that's what PolicyNote is. And we're going to increase that we have plans for increased personalization, increased ease of use, all these things. It's already really good, but like I'm really excited what we're doing there. So with doing that, what that means is you're going to have an SMB who's going to be able to go, we don't need to do, outbound calling from an SDR. We don't, there's our cost to bring them in, our cost of acquisition goes way down. They discover the product, they get in, they can start using it, make use of it before you even start charging them. And this, as an example, I mentioned our chief product who came from Case Tech. That's exactly what they did was they would put this functionality out there, use it 2, 3 times for free. Maybe the third time you have to give your email, you become a lead. Maybe the 10th time you have to start paying, whatever it is. There's all different models around this product-led growth.
right,
I did this at my last startup. Point being, with the better product, you don't have to, the effort to get people in and use it is much smaller. So that opens the door to much broader SMB use. The other piece is, and this is something else that our chief product officer has great experience doing, is micro products. So taking slices of the functionality that may be available in the core and make them available separately. And that can then be for limited use case, and that can be for lead generation, or it could be standalone. So maybe there's a piece of the functionality that an SMB needs that they don't need the whole thing. So they can do that at a lower price point, low cost of acquisition, low cost to serve. That becomes economical for us to do in a way that hasn't been with our product structure or nature in the past. So that opens the door to more and more from all these SMBs who are being drawn in. So that's one area of expansion. Another is think global. So we have tremendous demand for our global data. A lot of it right now is coming from US based clients who need global data. And we have plenty of non-US based clients, but most is like that, the large US multinationals, et cetera, that you're thinking about. There's use cases that we can serve that we don't hit today because again, cost of acquisition is too hard. It's the product nature, et cetera. So think about, as an example, let's say you have a mining company in Australia that then, sources in Australia and ships to a dozen companies in Southeast Asia. They need this too. We're not calling them right now. And so again, with the right product out there and with the product-led growth, you can start to draw that audience in on a much more cost-effective basis. So again, low cost of acquisition, low cost to serve. So that's expansion as well. Then beyond that, the other piece is something I touched on earlier with the product, which is going beyond this core of policy and information, going beyond the types of workflow tools that we have today into this workflow automation that will be driven by better AI, agentic AI, and the like. That's a huge expansion for us. That gets into, I think I gave the example before of a client who spends 30,000 with us and 3
yeah,
million with their outside advisors. Well, that client's spending 3 million and 30,000 today. they could easily spend, 2.5 million or 2 million, spend 500,000 with us, 2 million with those outside advisors is a great return for them. It's more share of wallet for us. And that's where you get in this huge value opportunity by going to this next level from what's happening to what do I do about it? And automating what currently today is services. And so that is a huge long-term growth opportunity for us. So to me, the TAM is expanding, right? So meaning the nature of clients being sucked into this, the nature of who we reach, the nature of how we solve problems for them. TAM is not my concern right now.
The market's plenty big. You got
Yeah.
plenty of opportunity there.
Yeah.
All right. You feel as though we covered everything pretty well so far for a first run.
Yeah, sure. I think it's great. I think it's been a good conversation and always I appreciate the questions and always having to talk about these things.
Okay, look, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm going to suggest. Look, everybody knows I don't tell people what to do. I don't tell people to buy or sell. I just present opportunities, and I think in a time like this, doing two things here actually presenting a potential solution for somebody that needs one with all the tariff changes, right? I mean, this is a product that could help you. Um, right now, the stock is challenged. It has a low. Oh, it's moving from the upper left to the lower right. Just hit a new low. Got the delisting notification, but when's the last time you reported? It was when did you
Uh,
report last?
it was March. Our next time around is going to be early mid-May. We haven't given a specific date yet.
Okay, so I think that operationally the company is on the right track, right? You just developed a new product and got it commercialized in a very short period of time, which shows how flexible you are. You are the new CEO, right?
Yeah.
When did you take over, Josh?
I took over January 1st.
January 1st. Okay,
Yeah.
see, and anybody that's been following me for a long time knows that I love it when there's a shift in the management because you can have a great product, a great service, and this is not trying to knock whoever was running it before, but the bottom line is it takes great leadership also to drive the company to success. That's just my experience in the market. So I think you communicate very well. You're very transparent. You come across as very genuine, and I think those are all good things. That's how I base my. These are the things that I look for when I'm putting together my thesis. Am I going to go all in on your stock? Probably not at this particular point in time, but I would say this is a company that was way ahead of everybody else with AI. It was very finite. I felt it was very finite, but that is expanding, things are getting more complicated. So
Yeah.
you need this. You need this product. You're going to need this product. So I look at it like this: you go to their site, you sign up for their investor relations on their email alerts. That way, you get everything that's happening with the company sent directly to your email. You can read it whenever you want. And if you're so inclined, I mean, look, what's the risk reward here? It's 62 cents. The high has been what? Somewhere up and around two and change, right? I think it could very easily go back to two and change uh, with a couple of good catalysts, a couple of good announcements, right? It doesn't have a overly bloated share count. They're working on some of the structure that will get fixed over time. I think this one is worth. Look, I tell everybody, buy one share,
Mhm.
one. That
Yeah.
way you have it on your radar, right? Maybe 10 shares. Maybe you can buy 10 shares, right? And it won't break the bank. But what it does do is it forces you to keep an eye on what's happening with the company. That's really the important part of that buy one or buy 10, right? Is just pay attention to what's happening because this thing could get radical if the product really takes off, the new product, right? I
Mhm.
mean, you could see some tremendous growth. in a very short period of time because the environment is there for it. That's the thing, right? So I think it's a compelling story. I think Josh did a fantastic job of sharing that story, and we're going to have you back, Josh. When do you think we should have you back for when there might be a catalyst or something else to talk about?
Hey, happy to do it anytime, Tim. I really appreciated the conversation. We report in May, so maybe sometime after that, and we can give you an update as the year goes on.
Yeah, that sounds like a good plan to me.
Wonderful.
Josh, I really appreciate the time that you took to share your story, and I'm looking forward to having you back.
Thanks so much, Tim. Really appreciate it. I enjoyed the conversation a lot.
All right, hold on one second. I'm going to shut this off.